Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in life when silence becomes louder than the noise around us. A moment when you look around and suddenly the world feels like it's moving too fast, too cold to pause, too busy to care. And in that moment you realize something hard, something heavy. Not everyone is meant to carry the weight of your broken pieces. We live in a world that is quick to listen but slower to understand. A world where people ask, "How are you?" Not because they care, but because it's polite. And if you dare to respond with honesty, if you say, "I'm not okay," watch how quickly the conversation ends. Don't tell people your problems, not because your pain is irrelevant, not because your wounds don't matter, but because your healing is sacred. You see, we all have our silent battles, don't we? A storm that rages inside us while we smile politely at strangers, show up for meetings, laugh at jokes. But what I've learned through the hardest nights and the loneliest mornings is that strength is not the absence of suffering, it is the grace with which you carry it. There was a time when I believed that sharing my struggles would lighten the load. That if I opened my heart, someone might help me hold it together. But more often than not, I found that people don't want to know the truth if it's uncomfortable. They want the edited version of you, the one that's smiling, winning, shining. And so I began to keep my silence, not out of pride, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. Your pain can be your power. You don't need applause to survive. You don't need validation to heal. What you need is to sit with your wounds until they stop bleeding and turn into scars. Beautiful, quiet reminders that you made it through. Don't waste your energy explaining your sadness to people who are too distracted to listen. Don't offer your vulnerability like a gift to those who only know how to take. Learn the art of quiet strength. Speak through your actions. Let your life whisper stories of resilience louder than words ever could. Because the truth is, the people who truly care, they don't wait for explanations. They sit beside you in silence. They don't ask you to speak. They simply stay. So if you're going through something right now, I want you to know, your struggle is valid, your pain is real, but you don't owe your brokenness to anyone. Keep building yourself in the quiet. And when you rise, and you will rise, let it be your light that speaks, not your wounds. There is a kind of healing that happens in silence, not because you are trying to hide your wounds, but because you are learning to honor them. Healing is not a public performance. It's not always meant to be shared, explained, or justified. It's deeply personal. It's messy, it's slow, and often misunderstood. That's why, when you're walking the path of healing, you must choose carefully who walks beside you. Not everyone is meant to hear your story while you're still writing it. Some people will listen only to respond, not to understand. Some will compare your pain to theirs, minimizing it, brushing it off with a smile or an overused quote. Others might even use it against you later, turning your vulnerability into gossip. And some will simply look at you with confusion, because they've never walked through fire. So how can they recognize the ashes you carry? When your heart is broken, your spirit is tired, and your world feels heavy, you might feel the urge to open up, to unload, to cry, to speak. And while expression is vital, what matters more is where you place that expression. Because there's a difference between venting and healing. There's a difference between telling your story to find peace and telling it hoping someone else will fix it for you. Healing doesn't come from handing your pain to someone else. It comes from holding it yourself, looking at it, accepting it, and slowly choosing to move forward with it, not in spite of it. We live in a world obsessed with speed and visibility. Everyone's life is on display. The good days, the celebrations, even the heartbreaks become content, but healing is not content, healing is not aesthetic, healing doesn't always look graceful. Sometimes it looks like staying in bed, saying no, crying in the dark, or sitting in silence for hours, asking questions that don't have answers. It's raw, it's real, and because of that, it should be treated with care, with boundaries, with protection. There's power in not telling everyone your pain, not because your pain is shameful, but because it's sacred. Sacred things are not thrown into the streets for strangers to trample on. Sacred things are guarded, nurtured, and respected. Your healing deserves that kind of space. It deserves your full attention, your gentle patience. It deserves to bloom in private, not under the pressure of outside opinions. Sometimes, in an attempt to feel less alone, we overshare. We look for comfort in places that are not equipped to offer it. We hand over our heart to people who are emotionally unavailable, distracted, or simply indifferent. And then we feel more broken when they don't respond the way we hoped. It's not their fault, and it's not yours either, but it is a lesson. Not everyone is capable of holding your pain with tenderness. The truth is, your healing is between you and your soul, between you and the quiet moments at night when no one is watching, between you and the strength you find after every setback, between you and the deep inner voice that keeps whispering, "You're still here, you're still trying, that's enough." It doesn't mean you have to isolate yourself or suffer in silence forever. But it does mean you need to be selective. Choose people who hold space for you without needing an explanation, people who don't rush you to get over it, people who sit with you in the silence without needing to fill it, people who honor your journey even when they don't fully understand it. And sometimes that person is just you. Sometimes you are the one who sits with your pain, listens to it, and gently says, "We're going to get through this." You become your own comfort, your own safe space, and that kind of healing, quiet, grounded self-led, is the most powerful of all. Pain will visit all of us. No one gets through life untouched, but not everyone will know how to handle pain when it shows up. And that's okay. It's not their journey, it's yours. So let your healing unfold like a flower growing through stone. Slow, silent, unseen, yet unstoppable. You don't need to post every wound. You don't need to explain every breakdown. You don't need to prove that you're hurting. Your soul knows, your body knows, and that's enough. The people meant to understand will never need a long explanation, and those who demand one were never meant to witness your transformation in the first place. So protect your healing, guard it like the sacred fire it is, not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to heal without applause. There is a language far more powerful than any spoken one, the language of action. In a world where everyone has something to say, where words are tossed around casually and promises are made too easily, it is action that speaks with clarity, with intention, with truth. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to narrate every chapter of your struggle. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply to keep moving forward quietly, steadily, with grace. When you carry pain inside you, when you've been through things that could have broken you but didn't, your very presence becomes a statement. Your consistency, your strength, your effort, even on the hardest days, become your loudest voice. Because nothing says, "I survived," louder than choosing to live with purpose after the storm has passed. You don't need to shout about what you've been through. It's etched in the way you show up every day, in the choices you make, in the strength behind your silence. There are people who will never understand your journey. They'll look at you and wonder why you've changed. They may judge your silence as arrogance, your boundaries as distance. Let them. You don't owe explanations to anyone who hasn't walked through your fire. And even those who have sometimes, they are meant to witness the light you become, not the shadows you battled. Resilience isn't loud. It's not always dressed in bold declarations or emotional speeches. Sometimes resilience is as quiet as waking up in the morning and deciding to try again. Sometimes it's going to work while your heart is still aching. Sometimes it's choosing to smile even when the world has given you 1,000 reasons not to. These moments may seem small, but they carry the weight of every hardship you've overcome. They are evidence of your strength. People will always have something to say. They'll analyze, assume, speculate. That's what people do, but while they talk, you walk. While they question your silence, you build something meaningful. While they wait for drama, you focus on growth. That is how you protect your energy, your peace, your progress. It is easy to talk about dreams, but harder to chase them. It's easy to speak of change, but much harder to live it. Words can be beautiful, persuasive, even inspiring, but they mean nothing if not backed by action. That's why it's better to let your life be the message. Let your transformation be the reply to every doubt. Let your persistence be the answer to every question. The right people will notice. The ones who truly matter always do. There's a quiet dignity in choosing not to defend yourself, not because you're weak, but because your time and energy are sacred. You learn over time that not every battle is worth fighting. Some things are better left unanswered, not out of defeat, but out of wisdom. You rise above, not to prove anything, but because you know where you're going, and you don't want to lose your way explaining every step to people who are not even walking beside you. Let your healing show in the way you treat others. Let your growth reflect in the choices you make when no one is watching. Let your scars teach you kindness, your failures teach you humility, and your survival teach you empathy. You don't need to wear a badge or announce your victories. The most powerful people are often the most quiet. They don't need validation because they've already met their demons and lived to tell the tale, not with words, but with life itself. Think of the trees. They don't shout to the world as they grow. They don't make noise as they stretch upward, break through the soil, reach for the sky. But season after season, they transform. And by the time people notice their strength, their roots have already run deep. Be like that, rooted, grounded, rising. This world will remember those who kept going when everything inside them said stop. Those who chose grace over bitterness. Those who turned pain into purpose. Not because they said it out loud, but because they lived it. They embodied it. They walked into rooms carrying stories no one would ever know. And that quiet strength, that's what changes everything. When your actions align with your truth, when you live in harmony with your values, you don't have to say much. People will feel it. They'll see it in your eyes, in your posture, in your calm presence. And the ones who don't, well, they were never meant to understand you. You are not here to perform your healing for others. You are not obligated to explain your boundaries, your silence, or your peace. Let your consistency speak, let your peace speak, let your progress speak. The loudest things in life don't always come with noise. Often, the most beautiful transformations happen in silence. Don't owe your brokenness to anyone. Rise quietly but powerfully. There's a moment in life when you realize that not everyone deserves access to your pain. Not because your story isn't worthy of being heard, but because your pain is not a debt to be paid, nor is your struggle a currency that others are entitled to. Your brokenness is not a public offering. It's not a confession that needs an audience, and it's certainly not an explanation you owe to anyone. It is your journey, your becoming, your truth, and you are allowed to carry it with silence, dignity, and strength. People often mistake vulnerability for obligation. They expect openness as proof of trust, as if sharing your deepest wounds is some kind of emotional transaction. But healing doesn't work like that. You are not obligated to unwrap your scars for people who only want to satisfy their curiosity. You don't owe your breakdowns to those who weren't there during your darkest hours, and you don't owe your past to anyone who didn't help you carry it. There will always be people who demand explanations for why you changed, why you distanced yourself, why you stopped talking or showing up the same way. Let them wonder, let them question. Your healing is not a spectacle. It doesn't require commentary or applause. The strength it takes to gather your broken pieces and begin again is something only you can understand. You walk through fire, not for others to understand the heat, but to find your own light. Some people won't understand your silence, your new boundaries, your refusal to explain. That's okay, let them misunderstand you. You're not here to be universally understood. You're here to become whole. And sometimes wholeness comes quietly, through slow mornings, tearful nights, quiet prayers, and moments of solitude that no one else sees. The world doesn't need to witness your healing for it to be valid. There is dignity in quiet resilience. There is grace in not retaliating, not over-explaining, not defending your pain to people who wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. When you stop trying to make others understand your wounds, you give yourself the freedom to truly focus on healing them. You reclaim your energy, you reclaim your peace, you reclaim your story. There is a certain kind of power that grows in the shadows, unseen, unnoticed, and untouched by the noise of the world. That's where transformation happens. Not on display, not for show, but in the silence of choosing to continue when no one is watching. In the decision to get up, again and again, when it would be easier to stay down. That's the kind of power that doesn't need validation. It doesn't need to be explained, it just is. Some people won't believe in your growth unless you broadcast your pain. They'll expect you to recount every hardship as proof that you've earned your strength. But you don't need to hand over your history to gain respect. Your growth is not contingent upon their understanding. You don't owe your brokenness to anyone, especially those who would only use it to measure your worth or define your identity. Your brokenness is not a badge, and your healing is not a performance. You are allowed to move forward without telling everyone where you've been. You are allowed to rise without announcing your struggle. You are allowed to smile again, to laugh again, to live again, without giving anyone a backstory, not because your past doesn't matter, but because it no longer defines you. There will be people who think you're cold for keeping your story close to your chest. They'll call you distant, guarded, maybe even fake. Let them talk. You know what it took to survive. You know the nights you cried yourself to sleep. You know the mornings you didn't think you could face. That knowledge is enough. You are enough. You are not required to turn your healing into a public narrative. You don't need to translate your pain into lessons for others. Your experience can remain your own. It can stay sacred, safe, and whole within you. You don't have to explain your silence. You don't have to narrate your journey. You don't have to validate your existence through your suffering. When you begin to rise quietly, people may not notice at first. That's okay. Let your energy shift. Let your presence change. Let your life move in a different direction. The ones who truly see you won't need the whole story to recognize your strength. They'll feel it in your peace. They'll see it in your eyes. They'll hear it in the way you speak with gentleness, not because you were never hurt, but because you chose not to let the pain harden you. You are more than your past. You are more than what you've lost, more than what you've endured. You are not the pain that broke you. You are the power that rebuilt you. And rebuilding is not a performance. It's a private revolution. A slow, intentional rewriting of everything you thought you had to be. It happens in small moments, in quiet victories, in the way you choose yourself again and again. Not everyone deserves access to your brokenness. Not everyone is meant to know the weight you've carried. Hold that truth close, guard it, and know that your quiet rise speaks volumes, even when your lips say nothing at all.